Julian, I'm not going to lie. The first half looked like an SEC team welcoming in an FCF squad. I mean, no disrespect, but Carolina got outscored 35-0, outgained 311-32, had 12 or 13 more penalty yards than they did offensive yards in the first half. I mean, you probably didn't expect a win, but you would have expected more than that from this team.
I didn't expect that. And honestly, Nick, I do kind of take a little offense to the FCS comment. Having gone to Elon, we play some of those SEC games. We barely
At least
lost.
you get paid.
Hey, we played well against Vanderbilt this year, but you're right. The Panthers did look like FCS.
Nobody paying the Panthers to go to Cincinnati. So
You certainly would hope not at this point, the way they played. Yeah, it was embarrassing. And I thought going into Sunday, after what we had seen the last 2 weeks, that we were past these kind of performances that led to Matt Rule no longer being here as the head coach. And we got a rude awakening as the Bengals scored on their first 4 offensive possessions. The Panthers went 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And Joe Mixon had a career day. 5 touchdowns, 4 of them in the first half. And the Bengals, who ran for 36 yards against the Browns in Monday Night Football, ran for 241 on Sunday. How does that happen for a Panthers defense that's supposed to be the hallmark of this team? Now, a bad team, as we've seen now that they're 2-7, but that's supposed to be the strength of the team. I understand guys like Jeremy Chin being out, Dante Jackson, who was dressed but didn't play, and also Derek Brown going out later. That hurts them. But still, there's no excuse for that Panthers defense to play the way that they played, especially when you have a defensive-minded head coach in Steve Wilkes, and that unit's been really good.
Let's build off of that, because this defense, as you mentioned, was really supposed to be the building block for this team going forward with probably a new head coach and new quarterback. Did this game kind of change some of your thoughts on what they have on that side of the ball?
Again, when you don't have Chin, that's going to hurt you, especially when it comes to stopping the run, because he'll come up in the box, he'll play well. Also, not having Dante Jackson, we saw early on in that first drive, Joe Burrow was picking on C.J. Henderson, and that trade, as we see every week, continues to be a terrible decision by Panthers general manager Scott Fitterer. So that doesn't help you. I don't know. Honestly, there's going to be holes you're going to have to fill. You're probably going to lose Matt Ioannidis after this year since he's a Rule guy. Linebacker play. Shaq is leader of that defense. Frankie Louvu hasn't really looked the same since he came back after missing 2 games with that shoulder injury, but that has not been up to par since Luke Kuechly retired. And even in the last year in 2019 when Luke was here, it wasn't like they were great back then. But that's usually been the hallmark of that defense as well. Like the linebacker play of Luke Kuechly in the past, of having Thomas Davis, Dan Morgan, now the assistant general manager here, John Beeson. I just don't feel like the linebacker play has been great here in Carolina over the last couple of years. And until that kind of gets fixed, it's going to be really hard to think that they can stop the run. When Derek Brown's done a really good job, you got to have the guys fill the gaps. And Steve Wilkes talked about after the game, they didn't have people who were able to play assignment football and fill those gaps and stop the run.
Talking about Steve Wilkes, the guys clearly love him. And let's just start out with this. I mean, he is handicapped by who is in his quarterback room, but do you think he's just shown himself to be a little too conservative to maybe get the full-time job here in Carolina?
It's confusing. The Rams game, I understood it in a way because, okay, it's P.J. Walker. You're just trying to go out there right before the half, not being aggressive. Okay, 10-7, you just got the pick 6. It makes sense. But then they come out the next week against Tampa, first play of the game, throw it down the field. Terrace Marshall drops it, but then after that, PJ has 11 straight completions, and he was excellent, the highest-rated QBR in the NFL that week. And then last week, they also were pretty aggressive. It led to a pick 6 right before the half, something that he said he didn't want to run into that situation. So it's gone back and forth of being aggressive and not being aggressive. But naturally, as a defensive head coach, he's going to want an offense that complements his defense. And really today, the offense didn't do that at all. And I know they want to lean on D'Onta Foreman as the running back. And I know people were talking about, hey, don't need Christian McCaffrey. Once again, Christian McCaffrey's different. Foreman's a good player, but he's not McCaffrey. Had a bad day, and when they weren't able to establish the run, that hurt what they wanted to do offensively. And I know these guys, they play hard for him. At least that's what Shaq Thompson said. They were battling to get him the job. We saw the same kind of effort that we saw even when Matt Rule was here against San Francisco. So I don't really know what much has changed. We thought we were past this the last 2 weeks. Right there you see on Sunday, the Panthers are just not a good football team. Steve Wilkes, Matt Rule, at this point in time, it's just not something you're going to be able to fix this season, as, again, they sit 2 games behind first place in the NFC South.
P.J. Walker, Julian, was 3 for 10, 9 yards, 2 picks.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, 14 of 20, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns. Seems that he should be the starter Thursday against Atlanta. Is it that simple to you?
Yeah, you also left out that P.J. had a 0.0 passer rating in the first half. How that's possible, I don't know. It was a bad day for PJ after two really good performances and what Patrick Mahomes, quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, said last week was the throw of the year. And my thought going into this week when PJ was once again named the starting quarterback, and now Steve Wilkes has done the whole week-to-week thing. He's never really committed to PJ as his long-term guy the rest of the season. As Baker and Sam get back, he didn't want to speak in hypotheticals. But I thought, okay, going into Sunday, no matter what happens, as long as he stays healthy, short week, you're probably going to start PJ on Thursday Night Football against the Falcons. But after getting pulled and seeing Baker play well, he always plays well against the Bengals, by the way, but seeing Baker play well, you would think Steve Wilkes is probably going to go back to the guy who he thinks gives him the best opportunity to win games, unless David Tepper or Scott Fitterer call it out and say, no, we can't play that guy too much because we had that conditional 5th-round pick in 2024. That might become a 4th-round pick, and then they tell him to play P.J. Walker. I can't imagine Sam Darnold would be available. They need to activate him off of IR by Tuesday or else he's out for the rest of the season. I'd imagine he's inactive on Thursday after being activated. So I imagine it's probably going to be Baker Mayfield and then P.J. as the backup.
Yeah, Mayfield's got to play 70% of the snaps this season for that pick to convey from 5th to 4th round in the future. Mayfield's performance, though, against Cincinnati, anything that makes you think there's something there? Could have a good game against the Atlanta Falcons?
Well, he threw a ball right to Trey Hendrickson that he dropped, so he should have been picked off as well. He led 3 touchdown drives, so I guess that's a positive. Terrace Marshall, congratulations. Got his first career NFL touchdown pass. Raheem Blackshear even scored. Honestly, Nick, by that point, I was so checked out, I didn't really care. So by the third quarter, they had already started bringing, like you said,
right.
FCS game. They had already brought in some of their bench guys anyways. So, no, I wasn't necessarily all that impressed by what he did. Like, he came in, stabilized it at least, and they didn't get flat out embarrassed in the second half. So, yeah, sure, he looked fine. But, no, I mean, nothing about it really led me to believe that Baker Mayfield's, like, all of a sudden figured it out.
What do you make of Walker, though? I mean, he's been such a great story. He was sensational in the second half of the Atlanta game. Tampa Bay obviously won that game for him, but first half in Cincinnati, and then he gets yanked, and then the whole game in L.A. were just not good at all.
Yeah, I don't know how much I can really put on L.A. The game plan just didn't ask him to do anything at all. They were terrified of what happened today. And he hadn't done that up until this point. And even last week with the pick six, Steve Wilkes told us on Monday that it was really more on Deontay Foreman, the running back, on that play, and also the left tackle, Ikwanu, not getting their assignments right. And that led to the pick six. And, of course, PJ's got to do a better job in that situation. I think P.J. Walker kind of showed us who he is and who we already knew he was. And I've been a little bit more impressed by him because the other times he had started, I wasn't really impressed in 2020 in Detroit. I wasn't all that impressed last year in Arizona. But last week, especially in the second half, he was slinging it. He had some really big-time throws there on third down especially. And in the game against Tampa Bay, he was excellent. So PJ's a guy who I think can carve out a decent career for himself in the NFL as a backup quarterback, whether it's here in Carolina or elsewhere. I think he's earned that right where he can come in for a couple weeks. You can win with him. Now, is he someone that you want to hold on to for a 6-7 week period of time? No. But I think PJ has acquitted himself quite well and unfortunately had a bad half. And the defense didn't help him out. And because the game's 35-0, it's already over, you're like, okay, let's go ahead and just pull the plug, bring in Baker, and see what we can get out of him, and then make a decision after that.
All right, I think the only NFL players that like the short week leading into a Thursday game are on teams that got blown out, and that's what happened to the Panthers. So they can flush it quickly and move on. How do you see this Thursday night against Atlanta playing out at home, and they clearly owe them?
Yeah, your hope is that guys like Dante Jackson will be healthy. We'll see about Jeremy Chin. I know Steve Wilkes brought up last week that it's potentially he could be back for that. That would certainly help them. And, yeah, they're going to want to get out there, play right away against a team that they honestly should have beaten had they not made not one but two, but like 4 or 5 mistakes that cost them that game last Sunday in Atlanta. I think it's a game that Carolina can win. And it's funny because they're sitting here holding the number 2 overall pick right now. And I know Tampa came back and won earlier today. I don't expect New Orleans to win that game against Baltimore. No idea where the game's at. The Ravens are a better team. They should beat them. Michael Thomas, surprise, surprise, out for the rest of the season down there in NOLA. The Panthers could win and be within a game of first place all over again, depending on how things play out again the rest of the week. So I think it's a game that they can absolutely win. I don't expect the kind of performance that we saw. They need to do a much better job stopping the run because a guy like Tyler Algier had some success against them last Sunday, had success again, and the Falcons lost to the Chargers. And you can't allow Marcus Mariota to beat you. And Cordell Patterson will also be healthy as well. Big. So it will be a challenge. But these guys, I imagine their attention – they'll be pretty focused come Thursday night. Quarterback situation, too, I mean, that hopefully will help them. But defensively, should be much better than what we saw this afternoon in Cincinnati.
Carolina 2-6, 2-1 in whatever this NFC South is, Julian, and they'll hope to deliver that third win of the season in prime on Thursday night.